Psalm 27, the very last verse. But before we get to the last verse, let's set it in again, go back in context, verse 13. Yet I am confident I will see the Lord's goodness while I am here in the land of the living. So, did you look back? Did you review the Lord's goodness? Did you remind yourself of the times that you experienced the goodness of God? Hope you did. And then verse 14, as though he is speaking to himself, but also to us. Wait patiently for the Lord. Be brave and courageous. Yes, wait patiently for the Lord. Now, whenever we think about, or I talk about the concept of patience, I'm talking about something I don't have enough of. One of the most dangerous prayers that a Christian can pray is, Lord, grant me patience. You realize that the only way you get patience is to experience adversity. Patience is a theme all the way through the Bible. And, excuse me, it's a characteristic of a person who is following Christ, pursuing God. Well, the Apostle Paul writes about it in Galatians 5, where he says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Patience is a fruit of the Spirit. I've thought about that a lot. I don't know enough about horticulture to say with any measure of authority, but it's hard for me to imagine that an apple tree or an orange tree or the lemon and lime trees in our backyard have to work to produce their fruit. It seems to me that God created them to produce fruit, and when the conditions are right, the fruit appears. It isn't like I don't need to go out and say to our little lemon tree, work harder to produce more fruit. Come on. First of all, I'm sorry if this is offensive to you, but plants do not understand language. I mean, some people believe that when you talk to plants, it makes them grow. I think that's okay. There's a lot of ways to look at that, and there are a lot of different studies, and some say yes, some say that's just silly. Me urging my lemon tree to produce more lemons, come on, try harder. Well, that's kind of dumb, really. Okay, if the fruit of the Spirit is first of all, it's not my fruit. It's the Spirit's fruit. So, like, he produces it in me. You know what I think when I think I've got my hands around this thing, I think about it a little more, and I go, I don't know what I'm still confused. I suppose because you can carry a metaphor way too far, and then it becomes nonsense, and I'm afraid sometimes I do that, and I probably have done that with the fruit of the Spirit. But just this much: if the fruit of the Spirit is produced in a similar way as the fruit of our little lemon tree, then the point is, do what I can to create the environment and the conditions so that the fruit will naturally be produced. How does that work with the fruit of the Spirit? I mean, you could go, this is an idea that you could spend many hours on, and I'm not going to. I'm going to just go right on the surface level and say the bottom line thing that needs to be present in order for the conditions to be right for the Holy Spirit to produce His fruit in me is one thing. It's grace. Grace. My openness to, my desire for, my alertness to God's grace, my embracing of God's grace. God's work in our lives is the result of His grace, always, always, always. I can't. If I'm wrong, somebody let me know, but I don't think I'm wrong on this. I think God's grace is what is the primary thing in this idea of nurturing the environment so that the fruit of the Spirit will be naturally produced in us. And on our side, the human side, because grace assumes two things. It assumes, number one, the need of the recipient, you and me, and the ability of the provider, God. Now, on the recipient's side, this is a very important thing. Both James and Peter write in their letters, God gives grace to the humble, but He resists the proud. Now, in order for the Holy Spirit to naturally produce His fruit in me, that is the result of God's grace at work in my life. And God gives grace to the humble. All right. So if I'm going to wait patiently for the Lord, the good news is the Holy Spirit will give me patience. He naturally produces patience in me by His grace when I humble myself. And there's the whole subject of how do we live in such a way as to do what is possible for us to do to create and nurture this environment of natural growth. Well, but maybe some other day we'll go into that more deeply. But today, David writes, wait patiently for the Lord. How many times in life does it just come down to you're going to have to wait? There are times when God just, boom, grants it to us right when, right then, right now. But there are there are a lot more times when you have to wait. I think a whole lot of my life has been waiting on the Lord. I've told you this before. Don't know how they came to this statistic, but I read once that we will spend 1/3 of our lives waiting. I'm not great at waiting. There are times when I really love to waste time, right? But the times I love to waste time, and sometimes waiting feels like a waste of time, but the times I'm good with that are the times I decided. When somebody else decides I have to wait, that's not so good for me. David is a realist. He says he's confident that he's going to see the Lord's goodness while he's here in the land of the living. And he realizes, I'm going to have to wait. Wait patiently for the Lord. This is where I'm going to pause for today with this. Wait patiently for the Lord. David doesn't write, wait patiently for what the Lord can give you. That's what I often find myself doing. Well, I'm not very patient, but I'm waiting a lot more for what the Lord will give me than just for the Lord. You know that old saying, are you more enamored with and more interested in the gift or the giver? Well, okay. In practical terms, what does it mean how do I wait, let alone patiently for the Lord, not just for things from Him? I wish I could say, okay, I'm going to give it to you and this is it. I can say, look, here's something. I believe this would be part of it. Something to do, to try. This waiting patiently for the Lord, you can do that while and do other things at the same time. That's possible, right? I can wait for Debbie and still read. I can wait for Debbie and still write, okay. But in this context, wait patiently for the Lord. A practice to maybe help us with that is in the morning. For me, you can have, anytime during the day would work for this, but just sit quietly. Don't do anything else. Let yourself be at rest, at peace, and ask God something like, I'm waiting for you, Lord. What? I don't know what that's going to mean or what that's going to, but I'm quiet. I've shut the other voices and the other noises as best I can, I've shut them out because I want you. Well, okay. It sounds like a mystical thing to do. It's not all that mystical. Experiment. Give it a try. And if it works, it could be very useful. If not, don't bother. Okay. I'm done for today. I'll see you next time on So Care with Stevie Boy. And I'm sorry I've gone over time today.